Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Now, the number one sports podcast network in the world. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet only $5. And if your bet hits, you're getting $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the FanDuel app today. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again, wrapping up the week with a Locked On Texas Tech special edition. It's the Matador Mob Mailbag, a variety of subjects, always far-reaching, but I think especially so in the midst of an open weekend. We are almost completely through. Everybody pat yourself on the back. We're doing a great job. Things we're getting into on today's conversation, Chris. We'll look to the future and what's coming up for the Red Raiders on the other side of this weekend. I want to talk Baron Morton and some circumstances there for the QB, who obviously you're trying to protect as you prepare for your biggest moments still to come. We'll get to some different scenarios and how that might impact number two next week. I also want to get back to QB2, at least what was in the form of Will Hammond, because a lot of folks asking about, hey, whole lot of conversation about different quarterbacks and new names. Is he off the radar? Where does he fit into 2026 plans? So we'll get to that in just a moment, and a few other portal, roster, and or target crumbs to come, including decisions to be made in-house as well. So a whole lot to dive into. I don't want to waste any time. Wanted to sort of start off on a different foot to shake it up today, though, Chris, because we have talked so much personnel and some roster management and targets, things like that this week. As far as looking ahead team-wise, there were plenty of folks that were checking out some playoff rankings, matchup projections, etc., and wondering how you may see some of these matchups. Morgan, Lawson, Eric, Stewart asking about how you would feel like we could stack up against some of the best of the best, at least as it stands now, a Georgia, an Indiana, an Ohio State. What do you make about some of those that you might see across the line eventually?
Yeah, I guess my personal opinion is I would prefer not to play Ohio State for a while. I think that one that's probably the one opponent that makes me the most. I mean, I think it's crazy because nobody just scares you. It doesn't mean that you will go in and you would be favored or you could win any of these games or whatever. But I mean, you are built as currently constructed, and you wish that certain other guys were obviously healthy, but it doesn't. Nothing just scares you. But I think Ohio State may be, because people have talked about your team in like talent, NFL, skilled, just the not really any weaknesses on paper. That's what you're talking about with Ohio State and the Georgia types. There's a lot of talent, there's a lot of depth there. There's a lot of size and those kinds of things. What would make me nervous about Ohio State specifically, now they do have a quarterback that at this point that we're talking, he is, I don't believe, thrown an interception yet this year, which is nuts. But he also has, I mean, this is arguably the best wide receiver tandem in the country. And sometimes like those kinds of players, it's like you can have them covered and play your technique and do the thing all you want, and it sometimes just doesn't matter, and so that makes you nervous. But defensively, they are a problem. So they are a problem. And Georgia, when they play, they're not as deep as they once were. A couple of years ago, they've been splintered a bit. But when they are playing well, and their version of their B+ or A game, they're going to be a problem for everybody. I don't care who you are. Notre Dame and Jeremiah Love, I think they're also, that's more of a field position type of game, more of a Midwestern style. I think their quarterback Carr is really come along. I think that they lost to A&M earlier in the year. This was a very young version of CJ Carr, and I think he's grown up some. But they don't really scare you. I think that so many of the quote unquote like the run games this is what you do well and what you're built to stop. Obviously, within an Indiana, we've mentioned Mendoza and their kind of spread it out RPO style of play, and I'm really going to be interested to see like what happens if and when because I think it's trending this way. Ohio State and Indiana play. Indiana is just fascinating in that they check a lot of boxes and intangibles because I think their coach is so good that these guys, in some ways, they're talented, but they're playing above their heads because the coach has them believing. There's confidence there, and it's kind of a scary combination of things where it's like they just don't know any different. And so, anyway, that's just a brief. But like, I don't know, man. I don't know what you're going to get here. Miami would make me nervous, honestly, because I think that talent-wise, their bookends, like that's probably the other best defensive end tandem in the country. Ruben Bain is somebody that is probably in the David Bailey conversation as far as best edge guys in the country. And so that part makes you nervous. But Miami hasn't looked perfect either. And there's just what do you Carson Beck doesn't really scare me. But what version of these guys are you getting, kind of thing too. So it's just fascinating to be having these conversations.
Yeah, it's just fun to think about it.
Sure, absolutely, it is.
There's still a whole lot of football to be played between then and now, and then of course some of those matchups would mean that you're in some of the elite of the elite type of landscape, and only a few still standing at that point. But fun to think about some of those considerations since you have asserted yourself among those that belong in that type of category. All right, thank you for that question. Vince asking this question, if we can think a little bit about what's to come on the other side of this weekend. Vince wants to know, any chance at all Morton would be in question to play at West Virginia related to locking up something for the Big 12 championship game or otherwise? Is this going to be something we're talking about next week?
I mean, if BYU wins and Colorado knocks off Arizona State and you're locked into Arlington, I still don't envision a scenario that Barron doesn't play in this game. I think how you're going to approach this game, and it won't be stated. It won't be really. I mean, well, it'll be stated here, but not internally amongst the team or anything like that. It's really, you would, if you could pick it, you just want to replicate the UCF game plan in this scenario. That's exactly what you're looking for. I don't expect you to be able to do that near as easily. I think weather will be a factor. I think, there's some different obstacles that will be in your way to trying to replicate the same, 38-2 halftime margin and all those things. I don't think. And we'll talk more about West Virginia as we go, and next week even. But there's nothing on paper that really scares you about them. Rich Rodriguez scares me. He's going to coach this game really hard. They could have a really good feeling about their entire season if they pull off what would be a massive upset, and they should if they were to pull it off. But this will be the last game that these guys play this year. And I don't know senior day and how many guys are going to have to go through it. We don't, at the time you and I are talking, we don't know exactly when the game will kick. I'm hopeful for morning. I'm fearful of an evening just because of logistics and weather and crowd and all that stuff. So we'll just kind of see what we get. But I do envision Barron playing. Yeah. And ideally you get this thing under control, and then you can pull him out. But that's just sometimes the other guy doesn't cooperate, as we talked about with UCF. But I just don't think you can afford not to.
First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly feel the call of the stadium. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. And with the money you save on tickets, you can then splurge on foods, drinks, gear, and more. Gametime makes it all possible. And best of all, Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get the first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. And if you're like me, you get tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal, and that's why Gametime's Zone Deals is the go-to move, since it automatically picks the best seats in your section for you at the best price. And as always, you can get a view from your seat right there in the app, so before you buy, you know exactly what you're going to see. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed.
I just don't think you can afford not to. You're playing a high stakes game of poker, and it's just not time to fold your hand just yet. I mean, I just think there's still too much at stake in seeding and hosting and ranking, and you just can't assume anything. So you've got to put your best foot forward, and that would include him playing.
Absolutely. This question from Glenn, Scott, Larry, and Tanner, asking about Will Hammond in 2026. And the gist is not a lot of conversation about Will Hammond as we're talking about QB targets on the other side of his injury. But how will he be expected to factor in 2026, Chris? Or is he really not a part of that combo right now?
Here's the problem with trying to answer this question, and here's the problem that they are dealing with internally. He does factor in, but at what level, you have no idea. You are simply guessing. And that's why you've got to remove the question mark off of your quarterback position for next year. You can't assume, you can't guess with the health of Will Hammond factoring in. What I would say is that he could be back and factor in and able to play. I don't know if odds are in his favor for that, especially to begin the season or the first half of it. I mean, I think there's this range, and the problem with it is you don't know until you know, and you can't afford that. Like, you can't, with what you're doing, with how you're recruiting, with what the expectations now are, with what you're the game of poker that you're playing, there just can't be a, because if you're gonna just say, let's just hope that he'll be good to go, and until then we'll roll with Lloyd or Mitch, and it's not a shot on them, but you need more of a sure thing. But let's just hope that that's the case, and if that's what you're doing, then I just think the whole thing is a giant project of hope. And I don't think that's how anybody's wanting to operate, because you're about to go get into the portal and build a new defensive line through this thing. You're going to go get you some tight end help. You're going to go get you some linebacker / safety help. You're going to continue to recruit at a high level. And this is the most important position on the team. Leadership. The plus minus on kind of what kind of season you can have is largely going to depend on whoever's playing this position, all that kind of stuff. And so you're not going to play. You're not going to chance it. You're just not. And the whole thing sucks, really. It's not one that you plan for. It's not one that it sucks for Will. It sucks for you. You don't want to necessarily be in a position where you're having to bring some outside guy in and say, hey, here's the new face of our program, even though we just met him too. I mean, that's not what your ideal situation is. It's not how Joey wants to operate with this thing, but you don't really have a choice. And that part stinks. And I hate it for Will. Will is the future of your program for sure. And he may be healthy enough to play some next year. I just don't know when that is. And at what level is that? That's all to be determined. So I think that you could have somebody drop in your lap here. And folks, we're talking like, I mean, you could have a new quarterback up on a billboard promoting season tickets in like 5 to 6 weeks. I mean, like that's just how that's the calendar crunch that you're in here. And like the portal opens January the 2nd. Well, it's at last check, you're consuming this on November the 21st. I mean, so, and this is all actively being pursued right now, and it has to be. And there's some unknowns there in your search because, well, we'd like to have so and so, we'd like to have this, but okay, are they? Is this an option? If it's an option, we'd like to go. If I mean, that's just what lots of hypotheticals out there, but you're trying to remove the hypothetical from your quarterback position for next season is what you're trying to do.
Yeah, no question. All right, thank you for that question. I'm going to combine a couple of these here because they're sort of in the similar realm to what you're talking about there in the future when it comes to the defense. Grant asking about the future of the defense, the defensive line. Seth was also asking about post Jacob Rodriguez middle linebacker plans, and Brian and Todd asking about, with all the talk about the QBs, could we discuss any portal crumbs or target crumbs otherwise defensively, and how we're going to try and follow this act they're putting on here in 2025, Chris. Not going to be easy.
No, it isn't. And all of a sudden it's like you've kind of like you set this, you just crushed it. And because you crushed it, it's caused other people to go, okay, so this is what they did. Well, our season sucked, and we'd like to be a part of this. We'd like to have a season like that those guys got. You will have to, and again, the rules have changed a bit. I think your evaluation will be key. You're not. I'm just gonna. Odds are very, very long that you will be able to bring in a couple of edge guys like Height and Bailey because I think they were 10s. Okay. If you want to like rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, I think they're both a 10. I think odds are likely that you could try to find the best guys you can because there's finances, there's cultural fit, there's chemistry, there's all the stuff, there's size and measurables and all the things. You could end up bringing in a couple of 8.5s or 9s and be thrilled about it, but they may not be 10s. We just don't know. I will tell you that, group of 5, ACC, SEC, and Big 12 all on the table as far as your edge goes with what I kind of would know as options. Don't really want to get into too much of that just yet, just because there's just a lot to be determined. But I will say this to you. I think the thought is that the interior defensive line class could be rather strong from the standpoint of what could be made available out there, if you follow me. And I think you may dabble in that once, twice for sure. Okay. And I think what you could, and again, if you can bring me in the equivalent of Lee Hunter or close to it, or what Scholar was or AJ Holmes is, but I think there could be on paper out there the thought that you can get at least that and maybe better. But again, we'll just kind of see. Quarterback and this defensive line is, because Joey said it to me on his last coach's show when we were talking about portal. He's like, yeah, a heavy emphasis on defensive line. He goes, we got some good ones this year. I kind of like it. I like it, and it just makes everybody's job easier. It's amazing. The whole rush 4 and be able to do damage and play defense like you want to play. This is why you're getting all these turnovers. You're not having to remember all the, hey, what schemes are you going to use? What are they going to do? You just turn dudes loose and win a bunch of one-on-one matchups, and you put guys in the right place. And, because Shields' best asset this year has not been trying to overcoach these guys. And sometimes that's very difficult. Like, the guys are guilty of overcoaching all the time. And he has, yeah. So, I think
coaching, over scheming, et cetera, maybe one of the biggest challenges for any coach, actually, to or, just don't overcomplicate anything.
Yep. And because what'll happen a lot of times is when a team gets their ass kicked at the beginning of a season, whether it's basketball, football, whatever, and you start, is good coaches sometimes, instead of putting the pen on the play call sheet, okay, we're gonna have to do this. No, they turn the pencil or the pen over and they get to the eraser side of it and they start taking stuff off. I mean, and like, let's just focus on what we know we can do, and let's get really good at that before we start trying to out scheme and out cute everybody and all that stuff. So I think Shields been, but your ideal goal will be to get together a defensive line to where you can ideally rush for and be really good. And I think that they're on the way to doing that. So we'll just see what that looks like. But that's where the heavy emphasis is going to come from. That in the QB position, and I think I would say tight end too. Did you want me to get into Jacob Rodriguez replacement and all that? I mean,
Yeah, I think you actually gave us some.
Well,
you gave us some idea that could be in-house. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and football is in full force, and FanDuel's keeping you stocked with action every game day with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet only $5, and if your bet hits, you're getting $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. Any way you like it, FanDuel has you covered. Quick, easy, and secure every time. If you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Do you want me to get into Jacob Rodriguez replacement and all that? I mean,
yeah, I think you actually gave us some.
Well,
you gave us some idea that could be in-house.
Maybe not. And here's what I mean by that. I think you have a decision to make, and this may be about what becomes available in the portal, financially, fit-wise, skill set, classification, all the stuff. I think you've got a decision to make about John Curry. He can absolutely go play what Jacob is playing at the Sam linebacker spot, 1,000%, and I think he would do it damn good. But then you have to say, okay, we need some help at star if we move him. So you may get into a scenario to where, can we go find the best safety or the best interior linebacker? Which do we find? And this is how we're looking at all this now. Things can change and probably will down the line based on who leaves you. And, oh, I didn't see that coming. Because, again, it's all could change. But I think right now, very early on, pre-portal, that's kind of probably how you may be looking at that. You've got star, you've got Sam linebacker. John Curry fills one spot. Find me the best option out there in the portal that makes sense financially, that makes sense skill-wise, that can play Shields defense and all the stuff, and we'll plug them in and let JFC, I should say, play the other one. Does that make sense?
I'm picking up what you're putting down. I hear you clucking big chickens. Thank you for those questions. And trying to follow this act is going to be daunting, but where there's a will, there's a way. And we got big time will, it seems like, alignment, etc. All the things we've described, Chris, which actually kind of leads me to this next question, sort of, I guess, what maybe you're describing there, from Jared, that is talking about Tech, finding the blueprint for obviously some portal success and what seems like sort of semi-quick turnaround success. I don't all the way buy into the quick turnaround because there's a huge component of this that's been years in the making, obviously. So there's been a big cherry on top with the most recent additions, but there's plenty of groundwork that's been laid since the arrival of Joey McGuire over a number of years. But Jared's kind of asking, like, hey, is this blueprint something that we have been too transparent about and showing the world how to imitate Texas Tech and turning things around? Is this something that can be replicated, duplicated, imitated? In some ways, I say easily, and people everywhere are already trying to do it. But there are things about it that have to be unique also. Maybe that's the more human or person side of it. I don't know. But the cash, Chris, there are plenty that have got just as much and a hell of a lot more. But it's not just about that. What do you think?
Yeah, there's some of this that won't be able to. I mean, it may be copied or attempted on the copy, but you won't see any sort of replication on some of it based on how they're reaching the conclusion on what's a fit. Because some of this is unique to Texas Tech because of what they are using internally and externally as far as processes go on allowing a sped up ability to act quickly evaluation process. And I would say that process was, I'm not saying it was flawless, but it was pretty damn salty. And then, and
5
then,
stars would eat here again.
yeah. And then the copy part of it, even if somebody did and they got the equivalent of a class and put it all together, they don't have Joey McGuire and you do. And I just don't think he's going to end up getting near enough credit for meshing it all together and implementing the care factor and the chemistry component. And that's the secret sauce, man. That just is. You've got some other secret sauces, but that's the main one, and you kind of need it all. And then you need a little luck too.
Yeah, can I add to that? Because I think that person side of it way more interesting to me. Tech isn't even spending the most cash out there, so there are plenty that are throwing cash at the situation. But it's sort of just the weird. I don't even know if it's weird because it was intentional. So it's intentionally the timeline. Like you have this football resort come online. Why? Because some of your most resource supporters at one point or another decided to collaborate and say, we're trying to put the best foot forward. You talked about that for several years, Chris, as you're like seeing this transition with your conference and so many things happening. So whether the football resort or even the men's basketball resort, I think I'd throw in that category as well. The timeliness with them coming online, obviously the great motivation behind your NIL effort, I mean, goes without saying, all the people that have made up that effort and contributed to it. But you're right. When you talk about Joey McGuire, and you started there sort of with the process and James Blanchard and his office, and that's all rooted in Joey McGuire. So it's just the timeliness of these right minds or right personalities. And then, of course, the very motivated resource component coming together has led to this product. Can be sort of imitated or even copied from a cash standpoint, I think, in other places. But do you get it to come together this way? I don't know. Hope you don't. Hope they can't. Hope they won't. Hope it's just us. But the thought, Chris, of like, hey, let's start in the trenches, kill the quarterback, protect ours, go win football games. Sorry, that secret's been out there for about, I don't know, the entire history of football. So prioritizing those things has always been there, but those are the hardest spots to land. And I think it goes back to a lot of Coach McGuire's culture and all the people element that surrounds that. That's probably made the difference in landing so much of this. The incentive and NIL era, I get it, but I'm going to buy into a lot more maybe the human element and that not able to be copied or just replicated.
Yeah, I mean, I just because I think your success and you're about to be on the forefront of kind of like the example of what you've been able to do, and I think that it may be difficult or more difficult to get players in some ways because there's going to be more competition for it, and I would caution people consuming this or fans of Texas Tech, be careful about believing everything out there when it comes to portal and Texas Tech's interest, because I think that there's a lot of folks that are now using Texas Tech's name or interest to increase an offer or
Ain't that funny?
make it sound like that this player is maybe better than, I mean, whatever, I don't know. And so it's just there's certain people I think you can follow and trust, but then because a lot of the information that is out there comes from agents, player representatives, and they have even if this comes from a reputable reporter, they have an interest in wanting to ensure that their client or their rep, whatever, is spoken of in certain conversations with certain schools surrounding them. And I think right now, Texas Tech, if you get that stamp of approval, it's pretty damn salty.
Oh, yeah. Do you know the Cowboys, Lakers, Yankees, Crimson Tide, Longhorns, and Buckeyes all wanted my services, by the way. Just wanted to go ahead and let everybody know that. They're all calling me. The who's who. You guessed it. Chris, I think I just rewind to like a time now where it's all about cash. That part of the conversation has become so annoying and seen thrown in Tech's face, and I don't care. I'm embracing it. Great. Hoping to spend more of it. We've been trying it with less of it for so long. It's been fun to try it with it this time around. We'll see where it takes us this time. But I just go back to like the time when it would come across the news wire. James Blanchard named as the Texas Tech college football general manager. And you're like, what? There are those in college football? And people were thinking, wait, the head coach is turning this over to this? And oh, man, what a fool. I can't believe you do this. This is crazy. And that doesn't have anything to do with NIL dollars, does it? That has to do with ideas and preparation and innovation, I guess. So, I mean, it's moments like that they won't necessarily make a part of the game broadcast when running down how this came together. But if you've been following it, we all remember it. And it's probably mocked in some circles. And now it's just like a trendsetter, I guess, because they're all over the place.
Oh yeah, and there was plenty of tweets that I know the Tech fans have dug up from the summer. Like, man, it's a lot of money to be paying for a 7-win season, and the Texas Tech will never win. They'll never win 10 regular season games as long as I'm alive. I've seen a bunch of them, and again, I just and I get why people were saying that. I mean, I get it. I mean, and it was a loud story being told over the summer, and it still kind of remains being. Loud or whatever. But again, I think they all answer their phones and will kind of semi-explain how this thing got put together. But not everybody has a full grasp of the evaluation process and how they can that story has not been ever made public. And I think that's the fascinating part. But again, all of it just points back to your head coach.
Yep.
That's just the harsh reality that other people, and I think Kurt Signetti has done a great job, but I mean, Texas Tech's got a really good version of what, able to put some things together and get it to be the best that it can.
And if you've been a member of the Locked On Texas Tech fam family, you've been in the know. Simple question here, Chris, from Zach, 2008 versus 2025. Who's a winner?
Well, I think 08's team probably played a tougher schedule.
I'd agree.
Than what you have played this year. And so, like, we're going to sit here and talk about how, this defense is just so dominant, but they didn't have to play what they had to play in 08 this year. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think that is worth noting. But I probably, based on just like the NFL thought to be NFL talent alone, I'd probably take this team by a smidge. But again, the story's still being written. It's like this particular 25 team has a chance to be one that stands alone because if they can win a conference championship, because if they can do some things even further. But again, none of that's been accomplished yet. And it was an 11-win team in 08. And the frustrating thing is they didn't, other than the 11-win team and the Crabtree Harrell moment, all that, there's nothing they have to really show for it from like a banner or, I mean, you lost the Cotton Bowl, and so anyway, it's just that whole thing.
Sounds like a TBD for this time around because those biggest opponents and biggest moments are still to come. There's no way to replicate at that time what you were seeing in your regular season conference schedule and compare it to anything similar this time around. But those big opportunities, hopefully, still out there. I do give the slight edge to this year's defense over that year's defense, which I'm always going to buy into. So I may give a tip of the cap to 2025 and just go ahead and be a prisoner of the moment. Also, some recency bias in that. But there ain't no Graham Harrell on the other side. There ain't no Michael Crabtree on the other side. There ain't no offensive line on the other side in 2025. Anything like what we were seeing back in 2008. So I think they'd have a shot. Probably be a pretty good ball game. Let's give it an incomplete right now, and maybe we circle back.
And you know what? This is funny that I'll throw this out at you, but there was no I mean, what was that? Baron Batch,
Shannon Woods.
Shannon Woods. Was there a Cam Dickey or Jacoby Williams on the other side?
Definitely not.
I mean, so anyway, this is just
behind that offensive line, Chris.
Yeah, this is just different. I mean, it's hard to, but I love all my children equally. But yeah, this story this story is still being written. So
we're tackling the tough questions. We're not afraid. Yeah. Cullen wants to know, could you give us a scale of 1 to 10 overall team health at this point in the season?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you're in a pretty good spot. Let's just hope that the upcoming weekend and next week there's nothing that pops up there, but I think you're in a pretty good spot because you're a little thin at receiver, a little more thin than I think you would prefer. But I think you largely got out of the UCF game about as healthy as you could have expected. And this bye week, it's been all about Barron and rest, and just like Terrence Carter was like, man, I think I'm going to play this next game, which would be the West Virginia game, feeling as better or as good as I've felt in weeks. And that's why this bye week came at a weird time, but a good one. But luckily, I think because the ones that are the overall health thing, it just goes back to Joyner, which you haven't had all year, Skylar Good-Howard, which you lost, some of those kinds of issues. Hunter Zambrano's never been a part of this thing. So there's just some players that I think you would have been utilizing, but large in part, we haven't had them all year.
I'm going to give you a 7.8, Cullen, but that's good, actually, up from like a 6.2. So we're trending upwards. Don't be afraid by that number. We did have another question asking about if you could put a percentage on what Terrence Carter has been playing at this season. Has he been a C+, B-, ever an A? What's he been dealing with week to week if you just said, hey, this guy's been cooking about this percentage of maximum capacity?
I mean, I don't want to put it into – because I don't ultimately know. I would, based on what he's had, though, I'm gonna guess that he's been at about 70 or 80. Some weeks maybe closer to 70, some weeks closer to 80. But I mean, I think he's dealt with a variety of things and just kind of pushed through. And I think that's a fair assessment. Maybe and maybe some of those, like after the Arizona State game, he probably was quite a bit below, that 70% range, and all that stuff. So, but I'm thankful he's been able to rest, because I just think he's this key figure in what you're doing that is difficult to, replace if you don't have it. And he does a lot of different things for you.
Toughness percentage maxed out, whatever that number actually looks like. All right. Thank you for that question. This question from Brian is interested in decisions upcoming for either returning guys or underclassmen with maybe professional decisions to consider. Any prominent ones you feel like we got to be on the lookout for, or things to put on our radar, Chris? But to hear the answer, you'll need to be a Matador Mob insider. So hit our show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial. And for those on the outside, this is where we leave you. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts, so you never miss a thing, and become a Matador Mobster today for less than a cup of coffee a month, so you can get the full Mailbag experience next week. Hope everybody has a great open and or idle weekend, enjoying some college football or whatever you got going on out there. Chris, appreciate your time as always. We're on to the OT.
Okay, man. And the answer is yes, but we'll get into that here in a minute. But appreciate everybody this week. We certainly appreciate it. Go BYU, go Colorado. Let's when we wrap again, obviously you're in the middle of some basketballing as well. And when we wrap again, we will get into everything that needs to be gotten into. And appreciate enjoy the downtime, because I'm already looking at next week going, it's a basketball game Wednesday, big football trip, basketball game Sunday. Could be the biggest week in your football program history the following week if you're playing in Arlington, and the whole thing. So it's just, the old cup doesn't just runneth over. It's just been spilled out all over the floor. Like the cranberry sauce will be at my house next week. Not a fan.
Thank you to the everydayers for riding along always. And of course, the Matador Mob for keeping our mailbag running over. Hit the show notes, find a link to a free 14-day trial if you're interested in joining that crew. It's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time. Hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.